guys, so for today's trick, if I had a spectator with me, I would just deal through the cards like this on the table, and whenever they wanted, the spectator could go ahead and call out stop at any moment. Let's say over here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the card they stopped at. In this case, we have the 10 of diamonds, and it's totally okay if I see the card. It's not really that kind of trick. But if we take the card, we're gonna leave it right over here for now, and we will get back to it a little bit later. But I do want to explain something interesting with you before we actually begin, and that is how different types of people perceive magical moments in different ways. Because I'll tell you a little story. So the first thing that I ever learned how to do with a deck of cards was how to spread a deck of cards on the table. And of course, you know what I mean when I say this, right? Yeah, so I'll actually show you a little demonstration just in case you don't know. But here, nice, simple little spread, right? Very easy, very simple. But the funny thing is though, sometimes when I'm performing card tricks and I do this spreading action, there are some people who perceive that to be a magical moment in and of itself, and they will react and freak out whenever I do a really nice, perfect spread like this on the table. Which to me as a magician is always so funny, because spreading the deck of cards is not really something that I perceive as a magical moment. But of course, to a non-magician, to an audience member, that could be seen as something very, very impressive. So I always wanted to put myself in their shoes and try to perceive the action of spreading a deck of cards to be a magical moment. So I think I finally am able to do that, and hopefully I'll be able to share that perspective with you as well. So what this trick involves, it involves me taking your card, 10 of diamonds, and we're gonna place it inside of my spread just like this, and you can see it going all the way in until the very last moment. And one important thing to note is that it is facing down amongst all the other face-up cards, and the only purpose for that is so that you can see it very, very clearly among all the other cards. So can you do me a favor, spectator, and just square up your pile and then leave it in your hands? Okay, so they're gonna go ahead and do this. And then I'm not gonna touch this pile ever in this trick. This is completely in their hands. But the goal of this trick, what I'm gonna try to do with your card, is I'm going to try to make your card jump across from my hands over to your hands, okay? And it all happens on the count of 3. And when we get to 3, all we have to do is we're both going to spread our piles once more on the table at the same time, okay? And hopefully you'll be able to see how we can turn this simple action of spreading the deck of cards into a magical moment. So on the count of 3, just spread your pile on the table, okay? 1, 2, 3. And we both spread our piles, and look at that. You can see how now there is no longer a face down card in my pile, but if we look in yours, it seems that 1 has magically appeared in the center. And hopefully it is none other than your 10 of diamonds. So that is the trick, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. And if you did, be sure to stick around for the tutorial. All right, guys, so here's the tutorial for the trick that you just saw. So this trick uses one of my all-time favorite sleight of hand moves, which is the side angle jog concealment. Now what that is it's basically a way to hide a card in the middle of the spread in the action of spreading a deck of cards. And this is just a really, really beautiful move because it's completely indetectable, because it just looks like you're simply spreading a deck of cards. But in reality, there is now a face down card hidden behind all these cards. It's right over here. This move is one of my all-time favorites because it's so simple to do, but it really can allow you to do some very creative things with these card tricks. And this is a trick that I love to do a lot. So I will now show you how you can perform this trick yourself. So the selection procedure, you have some options with this. The first option is you can have the spectator genuinely choose any card that they want. It can be a completely free choice. Or you can try to force a card on the spectator. And the only reason why you would need to force a card in this trick is if you want to be able to partially show the face of the card in the second half of the trick. If you have the spectator choose a free choice in the beginning, then you won't be able to show the face in the second half of the trick. So there's pros and cons to both options, and I'll leave it up to you, whichever one you want to do. But the selection procedure, no matter what you do, should look like this. So if you have them do a free choice, then you just are going to deal little packets of cards on the table and have them call out stop at any point. And whenever they say stop, you're going to perform a double lift with whatever this card is. So you're going to get a break on the second card from the top, and then turn both cards over simultaneously. In this case, we have the 10 of clubs, but it's actually a double lift over here. So then what you're gonna do is turn the double back over, and then you're going to set the top card down on the table, and this will now be a random card. What you are going to do is turn the entire pile face up, and with some misdirection as you're talking, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be performing a half pass with the 10 of clubs over here in this case by pulling down with your pinky on the card and then curling your index finger underneath the deck like so, and then you're simply going to pull that card down and then use your index finger to push the card to rotate it 180 degrees, and then you're going to simply place everything back down together, and that will result in the card being turned over. So if you do this by kind of tilting your hands downward like this so that the spectators can only see the face of this card really. If you do that while you do the move, it will be very, very hidden. But of course, using misdirection and talking and looking at them in the eyes while you do this move will be very, very beneficial to you as well. Another thing I like to do to sort of clean up this move is I do the half pass, and then immediately after I actually spin the pack like this. So I kind of just take my hands and give the packet a nice little spin. That just kind of makes the move look a little bit more natural, as if that's all you were intending to do was spin the deck of cards. And I also just like to give it a nice little spread afterwards, but don't go all the way to the bottom, of course. But now you're going to explain to the spectator that the first thing you ever learned how to do was how to spread a deck of cards, and I like to swing cut half the cards like this in my other hand, and then I point to the spectator with my index finger of my right hand, and I say, you know what I mean when I say this, right? That's sort of the justification for you doing this move. The reason why you're doing this move is because you need to cut the cards in order to get the top card, 10 of clubs, in the middle of the deck. So I use this sort of swing cutting and pointing to the spectator as justification for this, so that I can put the pile back down. I'm gonna hold a pinky break between the packets, because what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to be using my left hand fingers to slide the underside of this card out to the right, which is going to be the 10 of clubs, and I just do that under the cover of my right hand. So I'm gonna cover with my right hand and then use the left fingers to slide the underside of that 10 of clubs outwards to the right, which will result in the card looking like this. And this is actually the perfect position for you to now do the side angle jog concealment. All that means is I'm just gonna be covering that card with my fingers so it will not be seen, but I'm just gonna now spread the cards from left to right, and that card will automatically be hidden underneath all the other cards. So now it just looks like you're spreading out a normal face-up packet of cards. But in reality, their selection is now in the middle of this pile. So now you give a little story about how people react to spreading a deck of cards and they perceive it as a magical moment. You can come up with whatever presentation you want, of course, but I just like this presentation because it is genuinely true, and it does happen to me a lot where I spread a deck of cards and people will go, whoa, that's crazy, which is always very funny to me. Of course, feel free to come up with whatever presentation you choose. But essentially what you're going to do now is take the other half of the deck, turn it over, and spread it on the table next to you. I should also mention that the first pile you are spreading out on the table, you are going to spread it out right next to the spectator, and then put this secondary pile without their selection. You're going to put this closer to you, because this will be your pile and this will be the spectator's pile. So now what you're going to do is pick up their selection, which is this card over here. This is a completely random card, and what you're going to do is place this card within the pile that is closest to you. And since this was a free choice of a selection, I'm not going to be able to show the face of this card whatsoever when I'm putting it in. However, if I did force the card, what I could have done is I could have set up two cards on top that were either soulmates or they were both spades or clubs or something. And then what I would be able to do is I would be able to cover the pip of the card with my index finger as I push the card in, so that I can sort of partially show the face of this card, even though this will not be the real selection. It will just sort of look like it's the selection if you just do it for a very quick, brief moment. But of course, since this was a free choice, I can't do that. That option is only allowed if you set up two cards on the top of the deck ahead of time and force them. Luckily, it's not a super necessary thing. It's only if you want this to look a little bit more convincing. But if you're in a more impromptu setting and you just want to do this trick on the fly, then you don't have to worry about doing this part where you show the card whatsoever. Just put it in, in, and then square it up and say, but the important thing to note is that the card is facing the opposite direction. Then all you're gonna do is tell the spectator to square up their pile and place it in their hands. So they're gonna do this. They're gonna square up the pile and place it in their hands, and hopefully they will not be able to see that face down card as they square up. But if you just sort of instruct them how to do it, they should do it correctly and they won't be able to see it. Now what you're gonna do is square up the pile, but leave their selection out jogged like this, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to prepare for another side angle jog concealment, and you're just going to tell the spectator that on the count of 3 we're both going to spread our piles and the magical moment of the spread should happen. So all I do in this case is I'm going to be pushing the card downwards on the left corner, which will allow the card to sort of jut out at the bottom right like this. So now that the card's in this position, you can actually utilize this top right corner with your middle and ring finger. You're just going to sort of use this to slide the card out to the right to straighten it out. And now the card will be in the perfect position for you to do another side angle jog concealment. So now you just hold the pack like this and say on the count of 3, just spread your pile. So that on the count of 3, both you and the spectator will be spreading your piles simultaneously. 1, 2, 3, you're going to spread your pile and you're just gonna press down and spread, and that card will be hidden, and the spectator will also be spreading their pile at the same time. And since their card is in their pile, it will just magically appear. So now it looks like the card has vanished from you and it has now reappeared in their pile, and this is none other than the spectator's card. And that's the trick. You can tell them to examine everything, but of course you should first square up your pile, and if your deck has a nice natural break, and what I mean by that is if the cards have a natural bend between the face up and face down cards, what you can do is just very easily let go at the natural break between the two face up cards. Then what you can do in this case is you can simply do sort of a KM move with your fingers here. You can just grab the underside of this card as you scoop it up like this, and then that will flip the card back over onto the face. So one more time, it looks something like this. You're gonna scoop that card up and then just recollect everything like this. So at full speed, it would look something like this if I were to do it. So I would just drop the cards and say, yeah, you can examine everything. I scoop up the card, leave everything there, and now I can fully spread out my pile again, and now there is really nothing to hide. So that's the trick, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's a very simple procedure. Honestly, it's not too complicated. However, I think the side angle jog concealment is one of the best sleights out there. It's so creative, and I think you can really do some amazing things with it. So feel free to play around with this effect and let me know what people think. But yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.